So a very, very warm welcome to everyone who's joining us today, whether it's for the first time or whether you are somebody who's a repeat joiner. We're very, very pleased to see you here. We know it's the middle of August, so for many people it's a time of holiday and taking your eyes off the ball. So it's very exciting that you've managed to come along anyway. And for someone who's on a cruise, that's incredibly inspiring. So thank you so much for making the effort to join us. Do say hello in the chat box if you haven't already. We'd love to hear from you. Today, we're going to be talking about the psychology of weight loss. It's a really important subject, and we're going to be thinking about how our minds work and how that influences our weight loss journeys, because this is really important. And just for introductions, I'm Ruth Taylor. I'm the nutritionist with Boots Online Doctor, also a registered nurse and health and wellness coach. And really, my whole life career has been in health and wellness. And in the latter decade, it has been all around lifestyle medicine and helping people to really understand the importance of changing factors like their diet or how they manage their stress or their sleep or their activity, and what a profound impact small changes can have on our health. It's such an important and often overlooked area, although it is beginning to grow in popularity, which is great to see. So we are here. We are going to be talking all about the psychology of weight loss. I want to just give you a couple of guidelines on how to join in with today's webinar. If you have any questions, please put them into the Q&A box if you can find it. If for any reason you can't, please put them into the chat box and we will do our best between the team that's here today supporting you to find those questions. We will be sharing a little bit of a few slides at the beginning of today's webinar all around this whole subject, telling you what we have found out when we've looked at the research. And then after that, we'll come to your questions. If for any reason we don't answer your question, we apologise that we sometimes run out of time. We will finish at 2. And I'm joined today by Alison, who's going to introduce herself in a second. Just one final thing, I think our moderators are here. So we've got Suresh and Julia helping us in the background. So thank you so much as well to you for being here. I know that we have a little bit of information about how to anonymise yourself. So I know in the past we've had a few people who've been a bit disgruntled and when their name has shown. So please, if you would like to anonymise Julia or Suresh, if you could just share that information on how to change your name, if you wanted to anonymous or to any other name that you choose to call yourself for today, that would be really helpful. So please pop that into the chat box if you can. So great. Let's get started. Alison, let's come over to you. We'd love you to know a little bit about more, and thank you so much for being here today.
No, thank you for having me, Ruth. I think this is about my 8th or 9th webinar. So yeah,
now, aren't you?
hopefully, yeah, getting into the swing. And it's always a great part of the weight loss service to be able to be included in these webinars. I've worked with Boots Online Doctor for 4 years now. And had lots of experience with weight loss during that time, helping our customers, helping other people. And previous to that, I've had lots of experience in terms of health promotion, public health, weight loss with children as well, lots of preventative work. Yeah, so I'm happy to join this conversation today. Thank you.
Sorry, everyone. I'm on mute. Thank you, Alison. That's great. I can see somebody's asking to have their name changed. It might be that our support people can do that. So see if you can. You should be able to do that by going onto that person's name and changing it, if for any reason, please. So, seem to have an echo.
Oh.
How interesting. Has everybody else experienced that? I haven't had that complaint before. I'm in completely normal setup for the webinar. I could put headphones on. Maybe I'll do that when you're talking, Alison, and see if that helps. No echo from Ben. All right, let's see how it goes, guys. If it's a problem, let us know. Might be your settings, perhaps, for some reason. Okay, so anyway, let's find out quickly from you, how have you got on in the last week? We've got this little bit of an accountability segue that we're bringing in. And we talked a little bit about habits when we were here. I think that was last week, but I wasn't here last week, was I? I'm so lost. I'm disorientated myself now. I was. So How has this week been? Have you made any changes? Have anything stuck? You're beginning to make some new routines, some new habits. Anything going on for you? Mm, okay, so let's see. So Amanda, you're drinking more water. Brilliant. That is great news. How much more water and how are you managing to do that? We'd love to hear from you. Is there a way you're managing that specifically, or is there something you could share with other people? Have you found this easy? Have you found it tricky? What's going on for you with that? It would be really nice to know. Do tell us. We've got some name change requests. So I think when you log in, you can actually change your name when you log in. That may be something to consider if you join us again. Great. Getting the family on board. Thank you. Who said that? Sue, thank you. Getting the family on board. That sounds amazing. Not eating after dinner for a week now. That is brilliant. Well done. How have you managed that? Tell us how you've managed that. Goal was to eat more protein, quinoa and palm-sized chicken. Fish did well. Awareness made it easy in planning my meals. More exercise, less sugar, less sweet food, no alcohol, no snacks at all. Managed 8 hours sleep a night every night, bar one. Well done, everyone. This is sounding absolutely fantastic. I'm really impressed. Struggling a bit with the free food, but being mindful of what I'm eating and drinking. I'm losing more water than I can drink with this moisture in the air. Had a day out shopping with friends and managed to avoid the urge to eat. You should give yourself. So one of the things we need to do along this weight loss journey is learn to congratulate ourselves when we get things right, because that reinforces those positive neuroplasticity in the pathways in our brain. We love that reward feeling, and actually when we celebrate something, it gives us that sense of reward. So don't forget to give yourself a real round of applause, a real pat on the back when you have a good day or a good morning, or you overcome a hurdle. Celebrate, please celebrate that success. It's absolutely crucial. Let's move on and talk about today. But I'm so impressed and well done. And thank you so much for sharing. It's impressive, isn't it, Alison?
Yeah, I'm just not sure what fog eat means. One of our panelists has put struggling not to fog eat, but I'm not quite sure what that is. Do you, Ruth?
No, I can't. Do you give us a bit more information and we'll come back to you if we can?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
So
Thank you.
let's talk about today. So weight loss. It's not just about food. I think we all now know that, and I guess that's why we're here every week with different subjects. We want to think about the myths around calories and why, when we're eating, we need to consider more than calories in terms of what we're eating, why we're eating, and the effect that that food is having on our body. So when it comes to consuming calories in this diet, the body works in a more complex way to regulate our energy balance. So different foods and the nutrients in our foods have a very different effect on how our hormones work and how our brains control our hunger and our eating patterns. So, for example, if we eat protein and fiber as foods, calories tend to cause less problem with weight gain than the foods that we eat and consume when we're eating carbohydrate-rich foods and foods that are rich in fat. And this is because when we're eating protein and fiber, our body has to work significantly harder to digest and process those foods than they do if we give them just those sort of starchy carbohydrates or high fat foods. So your body uses energy to digest food. So that's called the thermic effect of food. It's quite a techie term. We don't do techie terms that often, but it is interesting to think about it. So protein, we use 20 to 30% of the calories of that protein source just burning through the digestion of that protein. And fiber contains lots of very difficult to digest elements. So it takes a lot of effort, a lot more calories to digest. It's really interesting. Whereas carbohydrates, in comparison to protein, it only uses 5 to 10% of its net weight. So again, and fat, 0 to 3%. So as you can see, eating fiber and protein burns much more in the way of calories during digestion. But the key thing here is protein also really helps in terms of appetite. So it slows our rate at which we digest food, so we feel fuller for longer, and also helps to release some of those satiety hormones, such as GLP-1. and peptide PYY. So these are really important. So our appetite is going to be really calmed down. This means if we eat those sort of protein and fiber rich foods, the research tells us, and actually I think our learned experience tells us, that you're much less likely to overeat. So we know that you're going to feel fuller. It's going to naturally stop you wanting to reach for snacks. And actually, it's not just about calories, it's about what our body does with those calories, what our body does with our food, and also about our body composition at the end of the day. So, depending on the foods that we eat, it can really help us in terms of managing thyroid function, helping with stopping weight gain. So, actually, the way that we recommend that you eat, which is sort of following that core meal plan where protein is at the center of every meal, is really crucial, not just for weight loss, but for your long-term health, for satiety, for building hormones, for keeping you feeling, and for your body composition. So this is really, really crucial. So forget that whole calories in, calories out. It's very flawed science, and we want to help you understand that because this is really crucial for all of us to grasp. And it's amazing, I think, the number of people who are still, or even organizations who are still very much orientated around the calorie theory, the calorie in, the calorie out theory. There's no such thing. It's absolute nonsense. Sorry. We're going to ask you now, what's going on for you? So, in terms of the whole psychological aspect of eating, we just have a few questions for you, which we're running on a poll. So, do take a couple of minutes to look at those, and then we'll be coming over to you, Alison, if that's okay. So, we're asking you how you sort of like get this brain, how you're working, how your brain is working for you, how you're working for your long-term health. Are you thinking about being on a diet or off a diet? Are you either focused or not focused? Are you thinking more in terms of let's get this lifestyle balance right for good? Let's see what we can do here to make things different in the long term. There's no right or wrong answer. It's really about you. This is your time to really start thinking about what's going on for you in terms of your attitude and approach to weight loss. And we're here to give you some support and to nudge you to be thinking, is that approach working for me? Is this approach something I've done before? Is there something I could consider doing differently? We're not here to judge you 100%. So I can see that being consistent seems to be our number one issue in terms of healthy habits. You're there. Lots of people are finding different things, but the number one answer right now is that lack of consistency, the inability to choose to do something and to keep on doing it. I can suffer from that as well. So I can totally understand why you're putting that as your number one at the moment. So I can see in terms of eating whole foods, around 50% of you are doing that most of the time. Well done to that 50%. 40% of you doing it sometimes, and a smaller number are not really looking at that right now. So that might be something to really think about and think about, is that something that could be beneficial to you? Is it that if you started looking at what brings protein to your plate, what brings fiber to your plate, is that going to help your long-term health goals? So around 20% of you are tracking everything you eat, 40% are tracking sometimes but not strictly, and around another 40% are not really counting calories. That's quite interesting, quite a diverse range going on here. Do you doubt that you can stay on track with eating healthily? So around 25% of you are a clear yes on that answer. 60% of you sometimes better try to stay on track, and just a very small 15% of you who are feeling confident. That's hard to hear, but it's really nice to know that you're not alone, I think. And what can we do about this? We can help you, I think. You have to just really start believing in yourself. I'm going to talk about that a lot today. So that's really important to be here and to be hopefully taking away some key messages. Good question, this. Are you worried that you don't have enough willpower to achieve your goal? So there's sort of like 40% of you saying no, 50% of you saying sometimes, and a very small number of you are not relying on your willpower. So that's really helpful. So thank you. Really interesting for us to see what's going on. Hopefully really interesting for you to start thinking about those key factors, because actually, Alison, why is this so important? You're going to tell us.
Yes, well, yeah. I am going to tell us or talk about it a little bit more. So our thoughts become our reality, and I think we can all relate to that. Um, as it states here, thoughts drive behavior, belief becomes reality, and positive mindset can bring about consistency. And if we can see that very simple cycle there, that visual in front of us, including emotions, can impact behavior. So how we act can impact thoughts, what we think, and then we just go round in this constant cycle. So it's understanding how we can break that cycle. And it's taken many, many years of research to understand how well connected the mind is to the physical. But it very much is. So, and that's nothing new to us, but we definitely know that what we think can impact our behaviors. So our thoughts drive our decisions and actions. And if we constantly think negatively or doubt ourselves, we're more likely to engage in self-sabotaging behaviors. And conversely, a positive, growth-orientated mindset can lead to proactive behavior and resilience in facing challenges. And that's very much the case, of course, with weight loss journeys. So if we break this down into four main parts. So number one, self-identity shapes our behavior. So how we see ourselves is so important. And if we see ourselves as someone who is unhealthy or bad at eating, then your actions may unconsciously align with those beliefs, and you might not even think about it, like like fog eating, which has just been explained. Thank you. Picking up food, tidbits left over, eating when we're not even feeling hungry. They can become habits, which, if we're not feeling positive or in a good light about ourselves, it's harder to break those habits. It's harder to stop eating those little bits of food that have been left behind. And a lot of that could come down possibly to comfort eating as well and reassuring ourselves. But of course, on the flip side, the negativity with that, shifting your self-identity to I'm someone who takes care of my health rather than the opposite can reinforce healthier choices. Um, so an example of that, instead of thinking or saying, I always fail at dieting, say, I am learning to nourish my body in better ways. So number two is positive thinking encourages consistency. And as the poll demonstrated, consistency is a challenge for most of us. Don't forget, weight loss is a long-term journey that requires consistency. There's no doubt about that. That is the reality. So a positive mindset can keep you motivated through setbacks. It might sound very simple, but it's fact. And we know that again through research and evidence. Thoughts like I'm making progress, even if it's slow, encourages persistence rather than quitting after a small setback. Number three, the power of visualization. So think about yourselves, visualize yourself reaching your goals. Can you see the light at the end? What do you think you'll be doing when you're weighing so much less? How much healthier do you think you'll feel? How much better do you think you'll feel about yourself as a person? And it could be very simple things like fitting into clothes more comfortably, having more energy. Both of those can create motivation and reinforce healthy habits. And studies show that mentally rehearsing success can improve real life performance, whether that's in fitness, nutrition, weight management, or whatever that might be. And last but not least, number four, overcoming limiting beliefs. A common negative thoughts such as I have no willpower again, or I can't stick to a routine, create mental barriers and you start to get in that cycle. So replacing these thoughts with empowering beliefs like I am in control of my choices helps to build confidence and discipline. Um, we're not saying any of this is easy. We can sit here all day, can't we, Ruth, and talk about think positively, stop thinking negative, change this behavior, change that behavior, stop that habit, stop this. But actually, this is a work in progress, and it does take time to change and break this negative cycle.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's like learning to ride a bike. It's like learning a musical instrument. It's like learning any new activity you want to become good at. It's this whole muscle memory thing. We actually have to practice things for things to take shape and to become the normal behavior, whether it's how we think about ourselves, how we think about our life, how we think about our weight loss experiences. It all needs to just have time and practice. And that whole sort of persistence, not perfection, is really important, isn't it? We don't have to be perfect. And actually, being perfect can actually drive us to sort of really adverse behaviors, especially when it comes to weight loss, when we fall off the wagon. We're going to talk about that right now, I think. So that's really interesting. We're going to talk a little bit about self-sabotage, and this is something that we talk about very often in this webinar because we know that for many people, that whole self-sabotage is a common reason for weight loss to fail and can make it really difficult for many people to even get started on a health journey. So the fact you're here, the fact you're turning up for yourselves, many of you several weeks in a row, is just amazing because it means that you are prioritizing something that's important to you. So well done. We can often make excuses just to delay our program, making it really harder to begin. So I don't know if anybody else recognizes that they may be a bit of a self-saboteur, but what does that really mean? So it can be any deliberate or unconscious thought or feeling or behavior that undermines our ability to achieve our weight loss goals. I'll put myself in the ring here because I have gone around this cycle a few times myself. This can manifest as procrastination, excuses, comfort eating, or habits that derail progress. People who self-sabotage may do so for a lot of different reasons. It might be because they are comfortable, they're unhappy, they enjoy certain activities, they feel as if they're missing out. If friends are doing something that they know that if they don't do it, they'll have that whole fear of missing out. It could be that they just don't want to lose something. They see perhaps giving up that packet of crisps. Somebody was saying they're now having a crisp tax from their children. That's genius. Well done. But, did you before feel like you were missing out if you didn't have the crisps as well? So it's sort of changing the psychology, changing the message. Are you missing out more by actually having those crisps or by having that bar of chocolate or that extra gin and tonic or whatever it is your vice that is stopping you from getting where you want to be? So things like social events, birthdays, unexpected invitations from friends, going out for a coffee when you plan to go to the gym, they can all be obstacles that get in our path. And emotional triggers often lead to self-sabotaging behavior, such as eating comfort foods that you hadn't intended to eat. Internal triggers include emotions like anger, boredom, depression, despair, worry, self-esteem, poor self-esteem, stress, and loneliness. So all of those emotions can often trigger, and we're actually in the middle of creating a whole webinar about emotional eating because it's such an important aspect that isn't really talked about. And that maybe I'm hoping to put that on sometime in September, October, just because we know emotional eating for many people is something that really can get in their way. And then there can be external factors like other people tempting you with food, or actually, some of us may even have feeders in our network of family or friends. So, people who actually feel happy when somebody that they know or love is eating, it actually makes them feel better in their self to watch other people consuming all sorts of other foods. Or it might be that they need to go on a health kick and they feel so guilty that they can't do it that they actually want to sabotage everyone else. And I really recognize this in some of the people I personally know because they don't want them to achieve that health goal because they feel even worse about themselves if everybody else is doing well around them. That sounds awful, but I reckon we would all know people who fall into that category. So it's really important to recognize the behavior of yourself, your messages to yourself, your behavior, the language you use yourself, the excuses that you put in your way, and actually start thinking, actually, is this just something that's preventing me from getting what I really want? Is that pizza going to be the long-term happy story, or is it actually going to get in my way? And what could I do differently? I love your crisp suggestion that you're getting your children to give you two crisps from each of their packets. That's really helpful. Really, we could do that with a lot of different things instead of having a whole packet ourselves. So there's plenty of things along the same line that we could do, but I think this self-sabotage is crucial to really think about. So let's think about what that means for other people. Um, this will be my last cheat. I love that. Yep. So this is the last time I'm going to do this. I'm never going to do this again. Oh, until the next time. Oh, I'm never going to do this again. The last chocolate bar I'm going to start tomorrow. Amanda, I'm a feeder. Thank you for admitting that. It's really interesting, isn't it? Emotional eating is a major challenge for someone who's here today. Thank you for sharing that. And even more so for your husband. So, actually, that's really tricky. Buying smaller packets may help. It might be that you actually need to think about what foods you're going to let in your cupboards for a little while. Just because maybe you need to just have, sometimes we can't ignore those foods. We haven't got that strength in that initial phase to actually ignore the foods which are going to trip us up, or the drinks. And maybe sometimes not even having them available is really good. I moved out to a village a few years ago with no shops. That was great. We used to have a shop at the end of our road. That was not great. So, and I know of all sorts of people who do all sorts of very random things just to make an excuse to go and buy chocolate from shops. My husband feels better if I join him with a glass of wine every evening. I've heard this so often. Now I just have a few tiny sips of his glass rather than my own glass. Well done. That's a massive win. Big pat on the back. It's really fascinating, isn't it? What do you think, Alison? It's quite tough, isn't it?
It is, yeah. I mean, I was thinking about when you just said you went to a place that didn't have any shops. Is that what you said,
Yeah.
Ruth? I heard that right, didn't I? Yeah. And I was thinking I've booked a holiday next year and there's no signal at all at the
Wow.
at the destination. So no signal, no phone charging sockets. So I have no choice not to use. I can't use my phone, and I will have no choice about that. And I suppose it's the case with anything. You completely eliminate it or the source or an opportunity to access it, and that's it. It's like not having alcohol in the house, isn't it, as well? If you like your tipple in the evening, don't
It's
have
whatever
alcohol.
your advice is just try not to have those things around for a while till you've got that strength. We all can get to the point where actually we can avoid those things, but it can sometimes take a few weeks, can't it?
Yeah, it can. The one thing I also was thinking about is sometimes the language that we use psychologically can also have an impact. I mean, I know we hear the word cheat a lot, cheat days, cheat this, cheat that, but actually the word cheat, it's a little bit out of context because it's not cheating. Cheating is cutting corners. If you're having like an extra biscuit, that's again, I would suggest a form of self-sabotage. You're having something extra, maybe that you either don't need to have, should we say. And I think terminology does play quite a big part.
I just
We
think your
also,
brain is that sort of like dopamine lift you're going to get from doing something naughty. It's almost going to, it's sort of like it's really interesting the whole psychology of it.
yeah, yeah, it is absolutely. And also, Ruth, we do get, and everyone who's joined us may understand some of this. We do get lots of people messaging us saying they're going on their holidays and they're going to have a break from their weight loss journey. Again, is it a break or is it a form of self-sabotage? And how is that going to make you feel when you get back from your holiday, knowing that maybe you've gone a step backwards? Of course, being on a holiday brings enjoyment, very momentary enjoyment, but is that going to amount to long-term enjoyment if it's put you back on your weight loss journey? So, yeah, just a few things to think about there, I guess.
Very much so. Yeah.
Yeah, and coming back to the saboteur that we've been talking about. Um, so why calorie restriction may seem effective in the short term and sort of you mentioned calories before, didn't you, Ruth? It often can lead to unsustainable eating patterns and psychological stress, making it difficult for individuals to maintain long-term weight loss and mental well-being. So, as Ruth mentioned before, counting those calories, and again, we do get a lot of those queries coming into us about calorie deficit. I'm eating less than I did before. How come I'm still putting on weight or not losing weight at the rate that I want to? Calories is far from the ultimate method of, or calorie counting is beyond the ideal method for losing weight, as mentioned before. So diet fatigue, the concept of diet fatigue is supported by research indicating that prolonged calorie restriction can lead to mental and physical exhaustion. So another reason really to think about that calorie counting that some of you might be doing. And this is often due to reduced energy levels, increased cortisol, the stress hormone we've already mentioned, and a lack of satisfaction from our meals, which of course can then lead to the picking and the eating between meals and so on and so forth. Emotional eating during restrictive diets. Again, the comfort eating is a well documented phenomenon, and restrictive eating patterns can heighten food cravings. So, something to think about, especially when you face emotional triggers such as stress or boredom. And this behaviour can be linked to elevated preoccupation with food, often causing you to break their restrictions and indulge in comfort eating. Again, the research tells us people who engage in emotional eating often do so to cope with negative emotions, and I think most of us can relate to that. But of course, restrictions then tend to exacerbate this behaviour rather than alleviate it. And then finally, the cycle of binge and restrictive eating. Um, the binge restrict cycle has been extensively studied. Again, our webinars are all about the research, the evidence base. Um, it occurs when periods of restriction lead to binge eating, followed by guilt and further restriction. And this cycle is both biological response to energy deprivation and a psychological one. Um, so yeah, restrictive diets, not always the best way to go.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's fascinating when you start digging into the research and you understand what we're doing to ourselves by doing these things that we think are going to be helpful. And I think all of those factors can actually increase the stress and the stress that our body is experiencing as a result of a sort of weight loss approach. So we do need to be mindful because stress can also be quite an interesting saboteur in terms of how it can really impact our ability to lose weight. Not only because it can lead into that sort of whole greater predisposition to binge eating, but also sort of a sense of chronic overwhelm, a sense of not being able to do this, a sense of failure, and really all of those emotional responses to feeling all of those things can really lead to that whole cycle, like you were saying, Alison, of overeating.
Yeah, and like we've said in other webinars, Ruth, it's not about what you're eating. So many other lifestyle factors have an impact, don't they? And as this slide suggests, or the next one, stress, can be an absolute weight loss saboteur. But we all have stress in our lives. I guess it's how we manage it, how we cope with it, the things we do to alleviate that stress and
Very much so.
finding strategies.
Yeah, I think it is about recognizing where the stress is coming from. So it can be a multitude of different places. It can be different people. It can be yourself. It can be the pressure you put yourself under. It can be emotional stress. It can be the stress of having a physical illness can cause stress within our body. And actually, our bodies are very basic in how they work. So just because something is an emotional stress or a psychological stress or a physical stress, we'll still have the same physiological response. So we're still going to create a lot of cortisol generally in relation to that stress or the distress that we're experiencing, which will increase our production of blood sugar because our liver is stimulated to produce glucose for energy when we're under stress, when we're in that fight or flight state. So when we're back in sort of like hundreds of years ago when things were really, we didn't have all of these machines and all of these current everyday stresses, we'd be running away from a point of danger. We'd be running to safety. And we'd have a surge in that flight or fight response to really rescue ourselves, to get ourselves out of that situation. And physiologically, when we're under a lot of stress, we will still have that same surge. We'll still have that same surge in cortisol. And so that will inhibit the release of insulin. So everything works to help us. But actually, it's in modern society when we're under day-to-day regular stress, it's sort of like the thing that can really trip up one of our factors in terms of weight management. So we can have higher levels of blood sugar. And we know, hopefully, from coming along to these webinars, that actually this is a key component of how we can get our weight loss to work for us if we manage that blood sugar. If we manage the amount of insulin that we have to produce and we manage how effectively that insulin works in our body, then that can really help us in terms of weight loss. So in reverse, if we're under a lot of stress and the insulin isn't working very well for us and we have a lot of blood glucose, then that can contribute to blood sugar dysregulation, which long term can lead to pre-diabetes and diabetes. We have a whole webinar on stress, so do come along to that if you've not been and it's relevant to you.
And also going back to our one of our viewers, she's now getting in 8 hours sleep. Of course, again, having the right amount of sleep enables you to manage and deal with stress a lot, not easier necessarily, but it becomes a lot more manageable and tolerable if you've had the right sleep.
Yeah, very much so. They all go everything goes so, it's amazing how we
Yeah, everything's knotted
you.
together.
Yeah. So like a big web, isn't it, really? So we know when we have a lot of stress, a lot of cortisol, that we're going to be much more likely to have an increase in the amount of fat that we store. We're very much more likely to gain fat around our middles. We're going to have that accumulation of visceral fat, which we know is deeply concerning in terms of our sort of whole cardiovascular health, our heart health, and our risk of stroke. So we really need to know what we're going to do about this. And we know that when we're under a lot of stress or when we're really bombarded with a lot of emotional trauma, that can really have a huge impact on our ability to lose weight because it will affect our choices. And there's some really interesting emerging research we're not going to cover today because it's too specialized, but actually some of those deep set trauma experiences that we have in life, for some people, may be one of the factors that really prevent them from being successful on that weight loss journey. So if that's relevant to you and you're really struggling, it is really worth getting some really specialized help with that. But we'll not go into that in any more detail today, but I think it's worth mentioning. So yeah, Alison, are you going to talk through this slide or would you like me to? Shall I? Okay.
Yeah, not the next one, this one.
Yeah, I'll do this one and you do
You do
that.
this one. You
All
do
right.
this one, Ruth.
All right. So we were just thinking, actually, one of the reasons we run these webinars and one of the reasons we do the polls in the webinars is so that we can begin to get you starting to think about these factors. We think the psychology aspect of weight loss is really important. So having awareness, having thinking about the saboteurs, having awareness of the emotional aspect of food and our relationship with food is really important. We need to sort of like step up and become a little bit more accountable for our actions. And I know stress is something that can really undermine my healthy habits. So I will join all of you in perhaps rethinking how I can overcome those saboteurs of stress. But we really need to reduce our self-sabotage and help reframe negative self-talk or unrealistic goals. We need to be realistic in what we're trying to achieve. And we need to be accountable for our actions so that we can change our behavior patterns. And that can empower us to make more positive choices. And, that whole cycle can lead us to feeling much more positive, much more like we can take control. And just having that awareness is that first step in this journey. So we think this is really important for all of us to be thinking about. So,
So, yes, mindful thinking.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure if many of you do are mindful. It is a good practice to have. I always remember someone introducing me to mindfulness quite a long time ago when it sort of became quite a thing. Um, Before COVID, wasn't it? Mindfulness became quite out there. And someone said to me, when you're looking out of the window at a tree, look at the tree and think about the tree and not anything else. Just focus on the tree. And that's how I was first introduced to mindfulness. It was a very simple concept, but from that day on, it's worked so well for me. So thinking about mindfulness, question the thought. So mindful, let's go back a step. Mindful thinking is the practice of becoming aware of your thoughts or where you are, your surroundings, without judgment and learning to manage them constructively. So when it comes to weight loss or any goal for that matter, our thoughts can either empower us or hold us back. And again, we've sort of mentioned that quite frequently throughout this presentation. But by identifying and challenging negative thoughts, we can shift our mindset to one that supports our success. So going back to those positive thoughts, positive thinking, try and replace a negative thought with something that's a little bit more achievable, maybe not necessarily positive, but something a little more achievable sometimes helps. So it's about reframing with positive self-talk. We should be our own best friends, and if anyone is going to comfort and reassure ourselves, it's going to be us. So try and focus on that and welcome those positive thoughts into your mind. Focus on evidence and achievements. So again, if you've knocked down a clothing size, that is your evidence that you've been successful and you've lost a little bit of weight. You might have a long way to go, but actually it's small, achievable steps. And this is what we need to remember. As one of our viewers wrote in the chat, trying to be kind to oneself. And that is the mantra, really, of mindful thinking. Be kind to yourself, stay in the moment, um, make sure your goals are achievable. To be achievable, they need to be realistic. Otherwise, you're setting yourself up to fail. So, be kind to yourself is all about practicing self-compassion and creating new thought patterns. And again, have a little bit more dependency on yourself. The one person who's in control of what you're doing, never mind who else you're with, the friends and family, if you're out with for a drink and you actually want to avoid alcohol, people with you might pressure you to having a glass of alcohol when really you don't want to. Take a little step back and take control of yourself. Be compassionate with yourself and stay strong. And create those new thought patterns. I mean, it's actually the same with drink driving, isn't it? Going back to going out for drinks with friends. If you're feeling pressured, it can be difficult when you're driving home and you can't have a tipple. But it's the same kind of thought process. You have to stay strong and true to yourself and do what you know is right. And it's not right to have an alcoholic drink if you're going to be driving. So try not to have that alcoholic drink because you know it's going to maybe put you backwards. You might be tempted to have more. It'll set you back no matter what. And of course, thinking about alcohol and the impact on the psyche as well. I
Yeah.
could go on forever actually on this. So sorry.
It is definitely an area of massive passion, I can tell. And I think you're absolutely right. So I think You've really covered this sort of information in the mindful eating. Is there anything else that would be helpful to pick up on that?
Uh,
I'm just conscious we're going to run out of time for questions. So,
oh, sorry, yeah. So hungry, we're talking, yeah, hungry all the time, snacking all day. So mindful eating originates from the work of a person called John Kabat-Zinn and involves paying attention in a purposeful way, um, so a way that keeps us in control to what we are doing, being in the present moment, not just being non-judgmental to yourselves. In the context of eating, it encourages conscious awareness of the food we consume and the experience of eating. So, mindful eating shifts the focus from calories, carbohydrates, fats, protein to engaging the senses and fully experiencing the food. And with this approach, we tend to eat less. Okay, savor our food more, concentrating on eating it, chewing it, savoring those flavors, enjoying it, choosing foods that align with our health goals. And we encourage you to fully think about what you're doing to eat and look forward to. Take time to enjoy your food in a distraction-free environment. All these little things can play a very significant role. So away from work, away from television, away from computers, look at the food, appreciate what you're eating, appreciate how it looks, its colour, its shape, its aroma. Food is glorious. Most of it is. Healthy food certainly is glorious. And as you cut into your food and eat it, focus on the textures and flavours, really savouring those flavours. Um, in our busy lives, we often eat on the go while multitasking, but mindful eating can transform our relationship with food. Just aware of the time, Ruth, so I'm going to cut it off there.
no, I agree. And I'm going to quickly talk to you about the hunger scale because this is another aspect of something that we can use. The idea is that you sort of think and tune into your hunger, and actually that instead of waiting till you're ravenously hungry, you eat when you are sort of like maybe just a little bit sort of on a level 2 on the scale. So maybe just hungry, not ravenously hungry. So you eat when you're on a level 3 on the scale, not waiting till you're super, super starving. We know when we're super, super hungry on that 1 or 2 level, we're ravenously hungry, we're going to overeat. So if we eat when we're hungry, that's a good time to start eating. Try not to eat all of the time. And also, when we stop eating, we want to be full and satisfied. Now, some people find this a really difficult cue to tune into. And the whole thing goes really nicely with that whole mindful eating approach. So, actually, tuning into our full signals can take a while to perfect because we've almost learned to override them and get to the point where we are eating to the point where we can become uncomfortably full. So, if that's applying to you, try and rein it back in and start really recognizing just that comfortably full feeling and see if you can stop eating then. It can take up to 20 minutes for our brain to register that we are full, and that whole satiety signal can take that long to kick in. So sometimes just eating a little bit more slowly, taking time over our food, chewing really well can really help with this whole area. So we're going to just move on, and I'm not going to labour on this. I think we've talked this through. We're going to move on. Our next webinar is next week. We're talking about cravings and our tips to prevent self-sabotage. And then we're back with you again on the 1st of September. We are taking a break on Bank Holiday week. I am going to stop sharing the slides. We've got a poll up here. We're just asking you whether there's anything you're going to do differently this week based on being here. And there's a lot of sharing that will come to you hopefully in the chat box. We're also going to come to your questions. So let's have a look at those while you're filling in the poll. Okay.
Oh, I'm so pleased that mindful eating is quite popular.
Brilliant. Okay, how do you get out of the habit of calorie counting? I was pushed to do this for years and became obsessive, and I find it hard to get that out of my head. Okay, that's really tough, isn't it? It's a habit that you've created for yourself. So the advice around changing your habit is to put a new habit in place. So maybe you could do something different from calorie counting, and maybe actually just give yourself permission to not do it for every day of the week. Maybe start by bringing it down and just doing it. I'm only going to do it maybe 3 days a week or the weekdays, but you're not going to do it at the weekend. But I think that's a really tough one, and it almost becomes an obsession. And it also, I think the thing I have found is that calorie counting gives you permission to eat foods that you perhaps would be better off having as an occasional treat rather than focusing on that being, calories aren't the thing. We know this now. We know calories don't really always help us. So see how you go. Do any of those suggestions help? What about fasting? We cover that all in a webinar all around how to eat, or yep, the how to eat, not the what to eat. So we could give you a replay link to that webinar that really covers all of the fasting. And if we have time, we can pick up on that. Fasting is really interesting. So Julia, if you can share the link to the YouTube pre-recordings, that would be great.
We did mention that briefly actually the week before last when I
Yeah,
joined
yeah.
Sam, and we just homed in on the point that fasting is not the same as starving yourself. They are two very different methods. So just to make that clear as well.
There's a really great comment here, or a really great question. I'm going to bring it because I know we're running down on time, but I think this is really important. And I'm sure what this person is saying is going to resonate with many more. So somebody's saying that they find losing weight takes up so much mental space and concentration that I struggle to meet other demands in my life. Do you have any top tips for this? I find that really helpful to read. I'm sure many people will recognize that. And I'm really sorry that you are experiencing that. It almost feels like it's become the absolute focus. Yes, someone is saying, yes, yes, that's absolutely it. Yes, says Fiona. Yes, brilliant. Thanks everyone for telling this person they are not alone. It is horrible. It is becoming sort of like, I wonder whether you trust yourself. Do you trust yourselves that you can do this? Do you feel like you understand a way of eating that makes you feel happy, that doesn't really undermine your health? And do you feel like you understand food well enough to feed yourselves? I'd really like to know. I wonder if you could get to a point where you just followed some really simple guidelines, whether you could get rid of some of that clutter and noise out of your head. And I wonder if you should allow yourselves to maybe just actually make a diary appointment with something else each day, even if it's just for 10 minutes, just so you can start changing that balance. Alison, any thoughts from you? I think this is very true for many people. I think it's a great point to have raised and a great question to have
It
asked.
is, yeah, it's so significant because this impacts the success, doesn't it, of people who are trying to lose weight.
Yeah,
I wonder if habits come into this as well,
yeah,
because if
exactly.
sort of as you get used to maybe a change in lifestyle and it does start to become habitual, which can take a long, long time to do so. I wonder if it does reach that habit and habits we know we don't have to think about as much. I just wondered if that maybe has a part to play.
Yeah, I think it is, and I almost think your brain is wired now to make this the focus of your energy as well. So we almost need to rewire our brain and give it some positive reinforcement and some positive things to think about, or a hobby that brings joy, because this is very depleting. And we were talked about being on a weight loss journey for a long time and it becoming quite emotionally exhausting. And I think for some people that is very true. And I wonder if you're feeling overwhelmed by this whole focus or whether you're enjoying it. I'm not sure. I'd love to know. But maybe it would be really helpful for you to bring something else in to the mix, maybe some painting or some drawing or some art, or just going and looking at trees or being in nature or a 10-minute walk and actually making the focus on the pleasure of the walk, not the health benefits of it. Because those things, we have to bring other things into our lives. So anything that resonates with you, please share. If you have any top tips and you've been in this situation before, or you've you're sort of winding out of this situation or you're in the same situation, but you think you know what you might do differently, please share because people need your support. They need our support, but they also need your support. We can help a little bit, but you can help a lot as well.
Yeah, it's funny because actually that's the first time that I've heard somebody say that about losing weight.
Mm.
And it just really brings it home how difficult it is. So yeah, thank you for sharing that. That's been quite powerful for me.
Thank you, Alison. I agree. I'm going to go for a very basic question or a very sort of different style of question about food. Somebody's asking if it's better to eat low fat or fat-free dairy products or full fat. We always go for the full fat generally because actually they tend to be the ones that fill you up. They've got healthy fats in. They generally, as a rule, we would go that way. Um, in the order of food, yeah, the glucose goddess who has got no nutritional training at all. Sorry, I just have to put that in there because it's sort of like there's so many people on TikTok and Instagram I came across somebody who's following the most terrible advice the other day, which horrified me. So I'm in a bit of a stress state about that. Not food, it was to do with supplementation, but not relevant to talk about today. But we're given so much advice by people who aren't necessarily in a position to provide that advice in a helpful way. I know the glucose goddess has helped millions of people, so I can't say anything negative. Actually, all of the research I have found about which food to eat first is actually your best first mouthful is generally protein or a green, sort of low carbohydrate, low glycemic load vegetable. So, yes, the fiber and the protein win every time. And I would always go protein first, just because it can really help to balance those blood sugars. So, that is the research I've read, and that's the way I would recommend you go for it. Somebody's asking about excess skin, and what I have read is collagen is really helpful for that excess skin. And actually, that all comes back to, do I need to take collagen supplements? Well, we're not going to talk about that here. It's not totally outside the remit of a webinar today. But protein, make sure you've got your protein, make sure you've got different amino acids. Protein builds collagen. That's really helpful for your skin elasticity and also those healthy fats as well. You want elasticity in your skin, number one. So healthy fats and protein and hydration, all of those three things. And then other things that can help with healthy skin are things like vitamin E. So your sort of like whole grains, your grain oil, and you can get vitamin E oil that you can drizzle. You could have avocados, avocado oil. All of those things can really help in terms of supple skin, and that's going to be potentially helpful. So have a look at that. Okay, Alison, and who you want to pick out of these questions?
Hmm, how do I deal with a plateau? You've not answered that one, have you,
No,
Ruth?
go for it.
No. Well, plateau, I mean, I'm not quite sure how much you know about plateau during dieting, but it's actually considered a natural part of the losing weight process. And it's quite usual for your body to go through that stage where either you are stuck on the same weight or maybe you're just losing a pound there, putting on another pound here. You kind of feel stuck, and it's a natural part, a natural process of weight loss, and it's expected. Actually, if you're going to continue losing weight, the body almost has to go through that phase first before it does continue. I'm not quite sure in what context you're asking the question, though. That's the only thing, and whether you're asking it in terms of dietary advice or um, yeah, how I'm not quite sure. Ruth, have you got
Yeah.
anything to add?
Yeah, I literally I've spoken to two people this morning about plateaus, so it's sort of very fresh in my mind. My advice is it happens to everyone at some point. The theory is it's about resetting your set point, and our set point is around what our body expects our weight to be. So our body will try and get us back to what our body weight was before. Great. So Julia's shared, thank you, Julia, a nice little
Thank
podcast
you.
about this whole subject as well. And what I would say is just dig in really deep, really keep a sense of perspective, recognize where you've come from, whether rather than focusing on the stagnation. Stagnation can sometimes be good. It might be your set point coming down, so you can stay at the weight that you've now got to. So that could be really positive, especially if you've lost significant numbers of pounds. Um, it can be very emotionally derailing. So really focus on what you've achieved. Don't focus on the here and the now. Measure yourself. That's really important. Sometimes we lose centimeters and not pounds. So make sure you do that. Protein all the way. If you're feeling really hungry, go up a little bit higher than that 1 gram per kilogram of body weight. You could go up to 1.2 as long as nobody's told you in your health history that you need to be on a protein restriction. Go up to 1.2 grams per kilogram of body weight. Make sure you're drinking plenty. Get those fiber-rich vegetables in and just hang in there because actually you will come out the other side. Uh,
Yeah, definitely.
it's just, and also that resistance exercise to make sure you're building those strong muscles. You don't want to be a bodybuilder, we understand that, but you do need muscle strength. So if you do all of those things and you just keep turning up, don't be perfect. Don't worry about it. Try to take the anxiety out of your head. Trust yourself, trust your body. It will do that for you. It's just going to take a little bit of time to get there.
Yeah, absolutely. Just think it's a slope, it can then go like a plateau, and it can also go whoo, which is all a part of the journey.
Somebody's asking about Manjaro and maintenance. Is that in the questions on the chat box? We'll just do one more question and we are literally going to have to go. Just because we are really up against time. Do feel free to leave us. We're back next week. Thank you so much for being here. There is a question about Manjaro maintenance. I can't see the question. Julia, can you see the question? Can you chuck it back into the chat box for us? Or how can we find it?
Yes, because it's drug specific.
We can answer some.
Yeah,
Okay, Manjaro has been a wonder drug for me, and as a support, I've needed to change my habits and thinking and behaviors. My anxiety comes from thinking about the point in the future which I move to reducing. It's okay. Get We 100% believe, as part of the lifestyle medicine team, that actually successful weight loss will come from you can follow all of the advice from the lifestyle medicine team without taking Manjaro, and you will lose weight. Obviously, Manjaro has been something that a lot of people have used as a crutch, and we aren't critical of that at all. We really understand exactly what that person was saying, that how overwhelming this weight loss journey can be and how it just takes over your life. We understand that too. So for many, these weight loss medications have proven to be so helpful in terms of getting rid of all of that thinking and having to focus all the time. Understand that. Bring your Manjaro down gradually, step by step by step, and use it and keep using it for a little while to just support you through that transition back to either a low dose of Manjaro for a little while so you sort of maintain your set point. We know from the research that in a weight loss journey, when you stop losing weight at any point for any person, it is very likely that you have a little bit of regain. That's very normal. It isn't Manjaro, it's just how it is. That is why doing all of the lifestyle approach, the stress management, the sleep, the being active, the working on your muscle health, the eating, the
habits.
really learning about what food is going to be supporting you in the long run, bringing that Mediterranean style of eating. If you can do that, all of those things are going to work for you. They're going to be the things that hold you through the future. And you will have the safety net then to let that Manjaro go eventually. It isn't, and if you're a Bits Online doctor and you're really stressed and worried, send us a question and we will try and answer it for you. Come to the webinars every week, use one another as support. And yeah, thank you so much, everyone. Sorry we've overrun slightly. And thank you so much to Alison and to Suresh and to Julia for all of your help and support with the webinar today. Thank you to everyone who's joined us. We've loved having you here. We love your questions. I hope we've answered enough of them to be helpful to you. And I know there's a couple that we've not got to, so apologies for that. And we will be here next week. Thank you so much, everyone. Take care. Don't forget, we're going to be asking you what you've done well this week. So just really have a great week. Don't beat yourselves up. Persistence, not perfection. You'll do it.
Look after yourselves.
Take care. Loving the love.